I hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving week. I know Eagles fans didn't, as their team lost twice in the big holiday week. And I also want to acknowledge this comment right here that was posted just after the Cowboys-Chiefs game on Thanksgiving, saying, "Unfortunately, you are 1-1." Now, I'm not too sure what the intent behind this comment was, if it was some type of shot at me or not. But if it was, they probably should have waited till the week was over, because I ended up going 11-5, closing out November with yet another great record. If that guy really wanted to see me fold, he should have been here for September and October. He would have had quite the spectacle. I was over here going 7-7. I'm pretty sure I went 7-8 at one point or something like that. I was doing horrible up until the month of November, and it looks like I'm picking everything up. But I guess now is a good time to say that I've always wanted to make a video on just replying to comments, both cool and not so cool comments. Though most of the comments will be coming from just 2 videos, essentially. It's still something I'd like to try, at least once, because I like interacting with my community. But enough of that, let's get into the predictions for week 14, the final week of bye weeks. On Thursday, you got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Lions in Detroit. Bro, imagine these two teams played precisely 7 days ago on Thanksgiving Day, because they're like the traditional Thanksgiving teams. We should try that one of these years. The Cowboys pulled off yet another upset, this time over the Kansas City Chiefs. So over Thanksgiving week, they have taken down the 2 reigning conference champions. Very impressive work by Dallas. Meanwhile, the Lions unfortunately did not pull off any wins on Thanksgiving Day, losing to the Packers in what I would say was a pretty tight battle. For the Lions, their offense and defense just could not line up right. Whenever the defense made a stop, the offense couldn't capitalize. Whenever the offense scored, the defense let the Packers score. And, the Lions just could not get back into the game. Once the Packers got that 10-point lead at the start of the game with the help of a very questionable touchdown, Detroit was just never able to catch up. So essentially a slow start is what fucked up the Lions that game. They just could not make a stop and follow up with the score. Very interesting matchup here though. You have a great team that's doing worse than they should be, and a mid team that's doing better than what they should be. You really can't count the Cowboys out this game, because we've seen them go toe-to-toe and defeat the best teams in the league. They just beat the Eagles, they just beat the Chiefs. They tied with the Packers earlier in this season. So I don't think the Lions will be an exception. I do think this could be a very good game here. But I will pick Detroit to win this game. I just feel like they're a bit too explosive for the Cowboys. Detroit's offense, if they're locked in, could shred anybody, and they could absolutely do so to the Cowboys. So despite Dallas's little hot streak they got going here, I'm going to stick with Detroit to pull off the win here. Next, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens had a pretty poor performance against Cincinnati on Thanksgiving, just constantly turning the ball over, essentially handing the Bengals that game on a silver platter. But even they didn't play as shitty as the Steelers did against the Bills on Sunday. The Steelers' fraudulence to me was confirmed against the Bills. They couldn't really do anything at all. This just looks like another year where they do just good enough to make the playoffs and do absolutely nothing there. They picked up Adam Thielen, if that means anything. The Steelers just did not look good at all in the month of November. Just very sloppy, constantly losing, shooting themselves in their own ass. And again, the Ravens played like shit last game too, but at least they were just coming off of a hot streak. And in general, they look much more aggressive than the Steelers. The Steelers just look like they're playing because they're getting paid, I suppose. I'm going to pick the Ravens to win this game. It's being played in Baltimore, and I just feel like, again, the Ravens have more fight and passion than the Steelers do. Speaking of both the Bengals and Bills, they'll be playing each other in Buffalo. The Bengals just had a beautiful bounce-back win over the Ravens, where Joe Burrow, first game back, looked pretty damn solid. He was able to capitalize on the Ravens' mistakes and repeated turnovers. Didn't play too amazing or anything like that, but we shouldn't expect him to on his first day back from injury. It was just a respectable win, a reminder that the Bengals are still alive, I suppose. Then the Bills proceeded to dominate the Steelers, but again, with the lack of passion from Pittsburgh, I don't think that's too much for the Bills to brag about. Now, even though the Bengals are still showing some ounce of life with the return of their best players, I'm going to pick the Bills to win. I just think it's the safer option and they're the better team. Also, after shoving the Steelers up against the lockers and beating their ass, the Bills proceeded to rob the Steelers of their lunch money, that lunch money being Darius Slay. Not the greatest pickup in the world, but perhaps that'll help a little bit on the Bills' defense. But whether or not he plays, I still got the Bills winning this game. Next, you got the Seahawks taking on the Falcons. The Seahawks shut out the Vikings, a very deflated Vikings team. So, another free win for the Seahawks. Meanwhile, the Falcons were over there losing to the Jets. They lost. Should be another free win for Seattle. Next, you got this trash-ass game, Titans vs. Browns. The Browns went against the 49ers, and their offense was just horrible. Meanwhile, the Titans went against the Jaguars, and the Titans as a whole is horrible. There's really not much to say here. It's two trash teams going at it, one that's been eliminated from playoff contention, and another one that's soon going to follow. But I'm going to pick the one that at least has a top 3 defense in the NFL right now. Hopefully this is the game that Shedeur Sanders gets some sort of rhythm going, because I still do want to see him succeed. Next, you got the Indianapolis Colts versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The oh-so-efficient Colts offense got shut down by the elite Texans defense, who didn't allow the Colts to do a whole lot that game. Meanwhile, the Jaguars were over there getting a free win against the Titans in Tennessee. This is a good time for the Colts to get a respectable win and put a stop to their little losing streak they got going and uphold their reputation as a growing elite team. As for the Jaguars, I suppose it's a good chance for them to continue being pricks in the AFC. I'm going to go with the Colts to win. I think they'll be able to handle Jacksonville, but if they don't, then we might have another fraudulent team in the AFC. Next, you got the Washington Redskins versus the Minnesota Vikings. Both teams look hopeless. They're not making the playoffs. They may as well just throw the season in the garbage. The Redskins lost a close game to the Broncos. They did at least come away with a highlight catch, which I would argue is the best of the year so far, and we've had quite a few great catches this season. But they lost, and at least it was a respectable loss. It came down to the very end, whereas the Vikings put up 0 points against the Seahawks. Easily the shittiest performance of the week and arguably the whole month. On top of that, it was Justin Jefferson's worst game of his career. He didn't even have 10 receiving yards. Again, a win here by either team wouldn't really matter because it's not going to amount to anything in the end, but I do see the Redskins pulling this one out. They look like a much more well-rounded and organized team than the Vikings, and that's all I can really say. Next, you got the New Orleans Saints versus the TB Bucks. The Buccaneers defeated the Cardinals despite having considerably less yards, but they did manage to pull it out. Meanwhile, the Saints, what the fuck do you think happened? It's the Saints. Now I'm sitting up here thinking about it. I don't know a single person on the Saints. What happened to Alvin Kamara? I'm looking at the stats. He's not on the board at all. What happened to Alvin Kamara? I only know Chris Olave and Taysom Hill now. That's how backgroundish the Saints are to me. That's how much stock they are. Buccaneers got this. Next, we have the Dolphins taking on the Jets. The Dolphins just beat the Saints, and the Jets somehow took down the Falcons. I can't even say impressive, bro. It's just a bunch of homeless people squabbling over some cardboard. The same way I'm calling the Chargers the LA Justin Herbert, I'm about to start calling the Dolphins the Miami Devon A-Chain, because he's like their only consistently good player on that team. But whether he plays or not, the Dolphins should be able to handle the Jets. I got Miami winning the Battle of Green Garbage. Next, you got the Denver Broncos versus the Vegas Raiders. This play right here sums up the Raiders perfectly. Brock Bowers, one of the few talents on that team, doing his absolute best to accommodate for the rest of the garbage that surrounds him. The Chargers went ahead and put the Raiders out of their misery. The same Raiders that were hyped up to be this team that would turn everything around this year, getting all these great players, signing Pete Carroll, trying to recreate the Seahawks and all this shit. Knocked out in week 13 by a division rival. All that hype for nothing. I knew this was going to happen. I knew nothing was going to change. I had no reason to believe in these guys. whatsoever. They'll be taking on the Broncos, who seem to have really taken a page out of the Chiefs' spellbook of dark magic, because they're on a hot win streak where they're just constantly winning games by such a close margin, but maybe minus the questionable calls and no calls. Needless to say that I got the Broncos slapping the Raiders around this game. Next, you got the LA Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals have been eliminated from playoff contention after a respectable loss to the Buccaneers. I'm not gonna lie, over these past 2 weeks, I feel like Jacoby Brissett did his thing. He is by far one guy that you cannot blame for these Cardinals losses, their failures. I would argue that he's been playing better than Kyler Murray. I said it. But much like the Raiders, this team just doesn't know what they're doing. But at least that loss was much more respectable than the loss that the Rams just suffered. They just lost to the Panthers, who put up an abysmal performance against the 49ers the week prior. I just don't understand how a team that's supposed to be super consistent loses that way. That's strike 2 on your fraudulence allegations. The first one came when you lost to the 49ers. They fucking battered 49ers earlier in the season. I guess I got the Rams winning this game, and they should, unless they want that third strike. Next, you got what to me is the game of the week, the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. The Packers had full control over their game against the Lions. They got off to an early lead and managed to hold the lead throughout the entire game. And the following day, the Bears on Black Friday football played pretty poorly against the Eagles, but they did just good enough to pull out the win. I'm not going to get into how I think that the Eagles lost that game as opposed to the Bears taking it from them, but I'm just going to let the Bears have it. The Bears are the 1 seed in the NFC. Let that shit sink in. They're about 1 or 2 wins away from a confirmed playoff spot. But it wasn't all bad against the Eagles. The Bears had 2 running backs that ran for over 100 yards. First time they've had that happen since the fucking Walter Payton days. But I'm really interested in how this game will go. It's the red hot Chicago Bears versus their fucking kryptonite. It's being played in Green Bay, but I don't think home field advantage matters to these guys because last year they both traded wins, defeating each other in the opposing person's house. Shit, I'm gonna have to roll with Green Bay to win this game. They've been looking a little consistent recently, and the Bears, even though they're on a hot streak, their performance has been just a bit lackluster, if you will. Again, against the Eagles, they had a great run game, but the Packers have been pretty solid at stopping that, so I had to pick somebody, okay? And I'm picking the Packers to win. Next, you got the Houston Texans versus the KC Chiefs. The Chiefs defense could not stop the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. However, the Texans defense could stop the Colts on Sunday. If it makes y'all happy, the Chiefs are now in a position where they gotta hope the teams around them start losing for them to even sneak into the playoffs. Yes, they are now at the mercy of the rest of the AFC. And the Texans are starting to get hot. And they are also kind of teetering on the edge of sneaking into the playoffs, if you will. But the Texans have a slightly better record and a much more winnable division. So essentially the Chiefs need this win more. And it's being played in Kansas City. And the Texans have not had the best luck against the Chiefs over the past, well, quite a while. It'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs fare against the Texans defense, which is looking better and better as the year goes on. And the offense is looking much better with the return of CJ Stroud. I'm real curious to see how Kansas City will do against the Texans defense. I'm sure the offense of the Texans won't be able to do a whole lot. It's really going to come down to how do the Chiefs respond to the Texans defense. And for some reason, I feel like the Chiefs are going to come away with this one. Maybe the dread of them missing the playoffs is starting to set in since they're 6-6, so there will maybe be a bit more passion in their performance on the field this game and going forward. But yeah, I got KC winning this one. And lastly, you got the Philly cheesesteaks versus the LA Justin Herbert. LA, free win off of the Raiders. Nothing much to say there. Meanwhile, the Eagles, they continue to look pretty bad. They haven't been doing too great lately. Losing twice on Thanksgiving week, one to the Cowboys, another to the Bears. They've been looking sloppy for a while. Like all of November, the Eagles have not looked great, but now they're starting to lose the games. They're starting to see the effects of their shit performance. That Super Bowl hangover is really starting to hit Philadelphia, having one of those back half of the season collapses again. This will be a good win for either team as people will take them a bit more seriously in terms of being a playoff threat. Now, I want to pick the Chargers to win, but without Justin Herbert, they are actually a deer in headlights that I believe even a disorganized Eagles team could be able to manhandle. So whereas I do hope for the Chargers' sake they come away with this one, I'm gonna have to pick the Eagles to win here. The inconsistency of the Chargers has just been too overwhelming. I really don't see them taking down the Super Bowl champions even at their worst. The only teams of good quality that they beat were the Chiefs and Broncos, and that was way back in September. We're in December now. Other than that, the Chargers have largely been bottom feeders that get their ass whooped by even mediocre teams. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna have to pick Philadelphia to win. As for my predictions, if I'm able to crack 150 dubs by the end of the regular season, I'll consider that a successful year of predicting these games. After getting off to such a shit start and really rallying back, and again, November was the big month, I started getting a lot